This is a video you all have been waiting for. I've been waiting on filming this video for a very long time, and I'm very excited to show you guys how I draw portraits. It doesn't matter if you're drawing with pencil or you're drawing with pen. You can follow these same steps and get amazing portraits. You know me, I usually don't script my videos, so this is just off the top of my head. If I miss anything, I'll make sure to create another video with that included. But for now, I'm just going to go over like the fundamental steps that I take to create my portraits. The first thing is the outline. If you're drawing a pen, I outline with a pencil. If I'm drawing a pencil, I obviously outline with a pencil. I've been freehanding my whole entire life. Like, I freehand all my drawings. I've been doing it for years and years. Then there was a point in 2020 where I feel like I perfected my freehand. This is a drawing that I fully freehanded, and I did this many times over and over and over. Recently, since I've had so many commissions, so many orders to fulfill, I decided, you know what? Why not trace? If I know how to freehand perfectly, then I can trace. For you, I recommend not tracing unless you're perfect at freehanding. But for now, please do not trace. I just want you to freehand or use the grid method. Either one can work. I know people use the Loomis method. I prefer not to. But whichever one works for you. Your proportions might not be perfect at first, but that's okay. It takes time, it takes practice, and it takes patience. The next step is when I do outline my portraits, I make sure to include all the shapes. When you look at anything in this world, whatever you're surrounded by right now, look at it. Everything are shapes. Everything are made up of shapes. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how they look. They don't have to be perfect. That's what makes my portraits look realistic. Looking at my portrait, you can see the random shapes within the portrait itself. I start by outlining all those funky shapes that make up the shadows, the highlights, the nose, the ears, whatever it may be. Draw in the shapes. Let's get into the technique I use to create my portraits. I've used many techniques throughout my life. The main technique I use today is hatching and cross hatching, especially if you plan on drawing with pen. Hatching and cross hatching can be achieved with pencil, colored pencil, you name it. It's a great technique. It allows you to layer your lines on top of one another to create darker values instead of just going in and create like a super dark value with like a 6B pencil. And then it would be hard to erase that and then create a lighter value on top of it. But with like the cross hatching or hatching technique, you can slowly transition to the darker value if you so choose. Once I have my shapes outlined, I start with the shadows. I kind of use the same approach to like oil painting. If you know anything about oil painting, many oil painters, they start with the darkest of darks first. So the shadows, the darkest values, and then they build upon that. That's what I do. I usually start in the nostril areas. I usually start with a beard or just the dark shadows on the skin. It's really up to you, but I feel like once you have the darkest value on the paper first, you can use that as a guide to measure your other values within your portrait. I'm a strange artist. When I draw my portraits, I don't fully finish the part I'm working on. Say I'm drawing the nose, I'm working on the nose and I'm filling in the shadows. I don't fully render or fully finish the values that I'm working on at that time. I like to jump from different points within my portrait. I would never just sit there and finish like one part of the face and then move on to the next, finish that, move on to the next, finish that, and have a completed portrait. I like to hop around. It's random. People ask me all the time, like, how do you know when your values are perfect where you want them to be? It's just an intuition thing for me. For you, I would say fill in the darkest values first and then move on to the midtones. And that's what I do next. I usually start with the darkest and then I move on to the midtones. The thing with moving on to midtones, I see a lot of artists have problems with transitions. Now, transitioning is basically transitioning from one value to a different value. If you have a very dark value and you're trying to move on to a lighter value, I see artists like ask me all the time, like, how do I do that? And the answer to that is you have to buy my book to know. If you plan on drawing with pen, you have to buy my book to know how to transition through values. But I'm gonna try to explain the best I can. I like to use cross hatching techniques. I lightly hatch from the darker value to the lighter value. I create that transition very slowly. After I have all my shapes down, I have the darker values, I have the midtones, I have some of the highlights. At this point, this is where I just layer and layer and layer and layer. I keep layering until I feel like the section I'm working on is completed, and then I move on to the next one, try to complete that. The very last thing I pretty much do is add those small details like the glare in the eyes or the little small highlights in the beard. It's really simple. If you get the shapes down and get the values right, you should be straight. And no one gets out first, and that's okay. We all start somewhere. I started somewhere. I wasn't the best when I first started drawing portraits. If you want to draw better portraits, here are some tips. Study anatomy. I've been drawing portraits my whole life. Until I studied anatomy, that's when I started to see a lot of progress. If you understand how the skull structure works, or even the muscle groups within the face, the different muscles, why our face is made the way it is, you would definitely excel as a portrait artist because you studied anatomy. Studying anatomy is super important, and I cannot stress this enough. Another tip that will really help you, and I don't think I've ever told anybody this before, it's not for the portrait itself, but more so the shadows within the portrait you're drawing. You need to do live figure drawing. If you have any live figure drawing classes or sessions in your city, please go to it and do live figure drawing. If you cannot access that, and if you don't want to pay the money to do that, trust me, I understand. Go online, type in live figure drawing model. There's usually a website where you can customize what type of figures you want to draw, whether if you want to be like 15 minutes, an hour, or 2 minutes, and it will really help you understand shadow and applying shadow to your portrait. Don't just do the figure drawings for practice, also look at other artists who do figure drawings. Once I started to watch other figure drawing artists, that's when I started to understand shadow a little bit more and how they make the shadow look so realistic on their paper. Change your mindset on how you see portraits. Like I said earlier, everything are shapes, and that's basically what the portrait's made up of. What I want you to do after you watch this video, I want you to look up skull structures. I want you to understand the skull structure as a whole. And then once you see the skull structure, I want you to look at different people once you go out, and you can see the skull under the flesh. For example, my eyes. Obviously there's shadows within, my eyeball area because there's a socket within the skull. Within the skull, you can see like the forehead. You see the separation and how you have this arch, the eyebrow arch that comes out, and that's why you see the separation right here. And like right above your eyebrow, there's usually a highlight. It's all because your skull structure. It's interesting at the end of the day to learn about it, to see it every day, see it on different people. You start to look at people different. You start to notice small things, how some people's cheeks might be higher, or noses might be smaller, bigger, or they come out more, or they have more of like an arch within the eyebrows. Everyone's different, but everyone has a skull structure, and it's kind of universal. So study that, and that will help you go a lot further, trust me. For me, I love drawing with pen. I discovered it in 2016. It's definitely changed my life. When I started drawing with a pen, that's when I saw progress within my other artwork. I oil paint as well. When I started drawing pen, I got better at oil painting. I don't know why. Even with pencil drawing, I think it's because it's hard to erase. So every mark you make on the paper, you have to do it with intention. And it worked. Like, I just became an amazing artist all around. If you really want to know how to draw with pen, step by step, from finding what pen to use to creating portraits like this, check out my ebook down in the description. My ebook is a step-by-step how to draw with a pen, what materials to use, what kind of paper to use, what to practice, transitions, shadows, application, everything. I've been getting emails from people who did read my book, and they told me that my information, my knowledge has really helped them become a better pen artist. And that's all I want. I want you guys to become great at what you do. If you could draw with pen, I feel like you can draw with anything. I will be making more videos on how to draw portraits. This one, I just really want to get out there, and I want to share my knowledge with you all. Just off the top of my head, I will spend like hours, months just creating one video. I don't want to do that because then you guys ask, where have you been? Where have you gone? I try to create something and try to make it perfect, but nothing's perfect. I just need film and put it out there. If you're interested in how to draw different parts of the portrait, like the eyebrows, just hair in general, or nose, eyes, I do have videos on this page on my YouTube channel that goes step by step on how to draw these facial features. It doesn't matter what you draw with. You can achieve the same type of skills I can achieve if you put in work, if you put in practice. I believe in you. I believe that you can achieve anything you want to achieve. Remember, I was in your shoes one time. The way you draw now, I drew before. The difference between me and you is that I put in more time, practice, and I learned as much as possible. And you can do that too. You just have to put in the work, and it doesn't take that long. I really started drawing portraits in high school, which was like 2016, 2017. If you want to become a better drawer, this is the channel for you. This is the page for you. I'm here as your mentor. I'm here as entertainment. If you want to watch me draw for fun, whatever it may be, I'm here for you. Please like and subscribe. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time.